See if anybody's gonna get on here. Seconds. Welcome to a special edition of Financial Fridays with the Financial Turtle. I thought I'd do a live today as opposed to the regular, real quick short that I do every Friday because the Financial Friday I did last week has got a lot of comments, a lot of people talking and chatting about the things that I said in that Financial Friday. So I just thought I'd do a quick live to kind of express what I was talking about and give everybody a full understanding. So if you did not watch last week's Financial Friday, I talked about an article where it said that people who make between $300,000 and $500,000 a year are pretty much struggling just as much as people who make way less than that. And I got quite a few responses from people who were saying that they make way less than that amount, and they are actually doing fine because as we teach, we've talked about budgeting, living within your means, doing the 50-30-20, things like that, where even though they were making much less of an income, they were still able to save money, have a savings account, emergency fund, and things like that, even in this economy. But at the same time, of course, there were people who commented and basically said I was out of touch. I had no idea what I was talking about. I think a lot of those people who made those comments were people who thought I was talking about people in general, which is not what I was talking about. I empathize and I understand that people who are not in the top 1 to 10%, which are the 3 to 500, are really and truly struggling out here with the economy, with inflation and things like that. The point of the video, though, was to talk about a lot of people say they live paycheck to paycheck, and the problem is they just don't make enough money. And the point of the video was to point out there are people who make way more money than the average person, and they're still struggling to live in paycheck to paycheck. Again, like I said last week, that is not an income problem. That is you living above your means. That is lifestyle creep. That is you, when you go out to buy things like buying your house, buying your car, things like that, you are buying things way above your means, even making that type of money. A person making $300,000 to $500,000, of course, more than likely is not going to live in a house that someone making less than $100,000 a year lives in. Same thing, you're not going to drive the same car. You're probably not going to have the same vacations. You're not going to live the same lifestyle. But just because you're not living the same exact lifestyle does not mean you should live well above your means, even though you make more money. You should still use the same principles of somebody when you first started. No one wakes up making $300,000 to $500,000 a year. Most people have to grow into that. So as you're growing into that, you had a budget when you were making much less money than what you are making today, if you're making that type of money. The problem is, as you continue to make more money, as they say in lifestyle creep, you start believing that now that I make more money, I can buy more toys, I can live a better lifestyle, stuff like that, which obviously is understandable because you're making more money. The problem is if you are making a low amount of money and living above your means and things like that, and you don't understand how money works, understanding how to budget, save, invest, and things like that, the more money you make, you're always going to continue to have this problem, which is the situation for most of these people who are making that type of money and still struggling to pay their bills, still struggling to have a savings account, still struggling to have an emergency fund, still struggling to pay their day-to-day bills. Because instead of staying within their budget, living below their means and things like that, they believe just because they start making more money, it gives them the right and the ability to start buying things that now they can't afford in this tax bracket, in this amount of money that they make, instead of sitting back and saying, even though I make more money, now that I'm making more money, I need to do a better job with budgeting my money. They just decide to keep on living that type of lifestyle, not living that type of lifestyle, living that type of way with their money and their budget when they are now making more money. Again, at the end of the day, not just me, people who are in this space and talk to people when it comes to financial advising, consulting, and things like that. We always have this conversation with clients when people come in and we look at your budget and we talk about where your money's going and things like that. So many people are behind the eight ball when they first get started when we talk about your budget because your fixed expenses are killing you. You're living in a house that you are house poor, or you're driving a car that's way too expensive for what you make, or you have credit card debt, you have other type of bills that you automatically have to pay as soon as you get your paycheck. So you're pretty much already behind the eight ball. You don't have the ability to pay yourself. You don't have the ability to save money and pay off debt and things like that because you are so busy having to try to pay all of these fixed expenses that you've created for yourself. And in many cases, with people making this type of money, they believe that they can now afford that. Even though when you look at your budget and how you're spending your money, things like that, just because you make more money does not mean you can afford way more expensive things if it is still above what you should be spending in your budget. I hope this was more helpful for me, more people who were commenting. Again, like I said, I got comments on both sides. Many people came in and said they make under $150,000 a year with kids and they are living fine because they understand how to budget, they understand how to save money, invest, and do things like that. And then there were other people who came in and were basically saying that I don't understand how the economy is working right now. I don't understand inflation and things like that. But a lot of these people who were having those comments, like I said, were people who were not making $300,000 to $500,000 a year. They were regular people who were basically telling me how much of a struggle they were having to pay their bills. And again, I totally understand that because that video was not for those people. The video was pointing out that a lot of people believe that if I start making more money, I'm automatically going to solve all of my financial problems. And again, if you continue to keep making more and more money, but still have the same financial mindset when it comes to your budget and saving and investing, it does not matter how much money you make. You're going to always still continue to have this problem. So hope that cleared it up for a lot of people. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Make sure you watch us on Tuesday for the Financial Master Your Money on Tuesdays, every 7 o'clock Central on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.